Hi there, this is Lisa Becerra bringing you video 6 in my Safety with Common Sense video series. What's in your bottle? Lavender? Stay tuned to find out. In my last video I shared with you the Tisserand Institute's adverse reaction report number 4, in which a lady used helichrysum, lavender, and tea tree oil to treat a burn and had a severe reaction. And I'm using today's video as a way of addressing a very common essential oil, which is lavender. It is one of the most widely used essential oils in the market. It's an essential oil that's used in many personal care products, including products for babies. It is an essential oil that's very widely available as a pure oil, as a diluted oil in various things within various manufacturers. And it is one of the most common essential oils for skin sensitivity. So it is one that a lot of, especially masseuses, are reporting skin sensitivities after repeated use of the essential oil. So today we're going to be talking about 3 main things. I'm going to be discussing the difference between an absolute and an essential oil, because this is very pertinent to lavender as it's a floral oil. I'm going to be talking about possible contaminations or adulteration within your lavender oil using other essential oils, and I'm also going to be talking about possible adulteration of your essential oil of lavender with other synthetic components. So I am using all of my information from Robert Tisserand and Rodney Young's Safety with Common Sense Essential Oil Safety book. So I will be bringing up an image for you very shortly. Okay, here you go. And you can see here in the top left corner, it says absolute. And then along the right hand side, it says essential oil. So if this is safety with essential oils, well, why is this talking about absolute, and what's an absolute? That is a very good question. I know I had the exact same one. So in my studies, there are different ways that people have been extracting materials from plants for centuries, okay? And one of these ways was to derive what was called a concrete from the plant material. And so what they do to get a concrete is they use a solvent extraction, which means they're putting a solvent on the plant material, and the concrete that is created is a solid, waxy, non-crystalline substance that contains the more true to nature fragrance of the plant. So it is going to smell a lot like the actual plant smells, okay? But the concrete is not an essential oil, okay? They are mostly used for perfume industry because they smell more like the plant than the essential oil does, okay? So what an absolute is it takes the concrete. Remember, the concrete is solid. It's solid and it's waxy. And so with an absolute, they take the concrete and then they process it again through a secondary solvent extraction. And this extraction solvent, they use a pure alcohol and ethanol on the concrete, okay, on that solid waxy concrete to remove all the wax. So they use a pure alcohol, the ethanol, to remove the wax. And when they remove the wax, the absolute that is left over is more liquid, and so it's easier to work with, okay? But it still continues to retain traces of the alcohol used during the extraction process, okay? The lower temperatures used to obtain the absolute help to prevent damage to the fragrant compounds of the plant. So again, it stays more true to the actual scent of the plant and it is, they're rarely used within aromatherapy, okay, because they are not 100% pure. So the absolutes that you will see used in aromatherapy are those used to obtain materials from the plants, from the floral components, where the floral petals are very fine, very delicate, and they would not otherwise survive the steam distillation process, where the material is just too delicate. Okay, so when it comes to lavender, there are companies that extract the material from the lavender plant, from the flowers, through this two-step solvent extraction, and then you get an absolute. And the absolute, you can see, is 44.7% of the linalool acetate. Okay, so linalool acetate is an ester, and esters are very calming. Okay, and then it has about 28% of the linalool, and linalool is an alcohol, and the linalool is both calming and balancing. So it doesn't just calm you, it also balances to kind of give you, it calms you, but it gives you energy. It calms you, but it focuses you. So it's not just calming and making you fall asleep and making you drowsy and, like, you know, your head wander off. It has the calming effect, but then it will also balance out the other components of your mental, emotional, and energetic qualities at the time that you're using it. So you can see the absolute does not have as much linalool in it as the majority of the essential oils. Now that's a totally different topic, as you're seeing with lavender, and this is Lavandula augustifolia. This is called true lavender, and you can see just here on this page there's 1, 2, 3, 4 different types, and then there's also the Ukrainian lavender, which you can't see on this image. So with the exception of the Bulgarian, which is Russian, you can see that the Australian, the French, and the Moldovan all have a much closer percentage of linalool and the linalool acetate. So these are far more balancing than the absolute would be. And the reason there's a difference between these essential oils is because there's a difference in the plant chemistry in Australia versus in Russia versus in France. So you want to be sure when you're using lavender that you know which lavender you're using in order to have a better understanding about how your body is going to respond to it. Is it going to be more higher in the linalool acetate, where you're going to be calming and kind of sedating, or is it going to be closer combination of the linalool acetate and the linalool, to where it's going to be calming, but it's also going to help balance you? Okay, so now that we've kind of gone over that, I'm going to go ahead and read what Robert Tisserand and Rodney Young have to say regarding the quality of lavender. And I'm going to go ahead and put this up on the screen here too, so you can see it with me. It says, lavender oil is often adulterated with Lavenden oil. Other possible adulterants include spike lavender, Spanish sage oil, white camphor oil fractions, rectified or acetylated hoe oil, acetylated lavender oil, synthetic linalool, and linalool acetate. The linalool content of lavender oil should comprise of at least 85% of the R negative enantiomer, and the linalool acetate content should comprise at least 98% of the R enantiomer. Okay, so they're stating that this oil is often adulterated. I'm not saying it, they're saying it, and this is why this is the first oil I am bringing you regarding what's in your bottle. So let's go ahead and look real fast at Lavenden oil. Okay, so Lavenden oil is one that you also have an absolute and an essential oil. Okay, so I would assume that it's probably cheaper to do the absolute process than it is to do the essential oil process. So it's hard to say what the adulteration would be. Is it the absolute or is it the essential oil? But the Lavenden Absolute is 42% linalool and 5% coumarin. And then the Lavenden Essential Oils have linalool and the linalool acetate. And this is why lavender is often used as an adulteration component to lavender. It is a lot less expensive than lavender fine, Lavandula augustifolia, so it is more cost effective for brokers, the middleman, to buy some lavender and to buy some lavenden and to mix them together and then sell to a manufacturer who may or may not know that the product they're selling you isn't truly just Lavandula augustifolia, but it actually has lavenden, which is Lavandula cross intermedia. Okay, so the reason why it's important to know if your product has lavenden in it is because lavenden has drug interactions. Okay, it can inhibit blood clotting, so it can stop your blood from clotting. So if you are on blood thinners already, you probably don't want to use lavenden because it can make your blood even thinner. Okay. The other thing, it has adverse skin reactions with undiluted Lavenden oil. Okay. And then with the absolute, it has a maximum dermal use level of 0.03%, which means if you're going to use the absolute, if your essential oil is adulterated with the Lavenden Absolute, you don't want to put this on your skin, which is very, very different than the Lavandula augustifolia, because Lavandula augustifolia is very safe. There's no known hazards to applying it on your skin. But this one, this absolute, they're saying if you're going to put it on your skin, you should use a dilution of no more than 0.03%, which is a tiny amount of this product in a carrier oil. Okay, so it's very, very important that you trust the source of your lavender, that they do not have Lavenden Absolute in it, in order for you to trust that you can put on this lavender product on your body. Okay, so the next essential oil that they say that it could be adulterated with is spike lavender. Okay, so spike lavender is again a less expensive plant, so it's cost effective for a broker to again adulterate their Lavandula augustifolia with spike lavender, and spike lavender is Lavandula latifolia. Okay, and spike lavender, as you can see here, has a linalool content, but it doesn't have a linalool acetate. It has 1.8 cinnalol, and this is also known as eucalyptol. This is what gives eucalyptus that eucalyptus scent. Okay, so this is a very heavy, very strong scent, and eucalyptol is an oxide. Okay, so oxides are stimulating. Okay, they are going to jump your system, okay? To kind of like jumpstart, kickstart your system. Like, whoa, what's that? That's the sensation that you get when you're breathing in an oxide, okay? So then it also has camphor in it, and camphor is a ketone. Now, with ketones, you have to be careful regarding the amount of a ketone that you use in your essential oil formulations, because ketones, while they're balancing in small quantities, ketones are neurotoxic in larger quantities. So if you're not using a pure lavender essential oil and your lavender essential oil has been adulterated with spike lavender, and you're putting oils on, and you're using it here, and you're putting it on your feet, and you're putting it on the back of your neck, and you're diffusing it in your diffuser, and you're breathing all this in, you might be giving yourself headaches because it has this ketone in it, and the ketone could be neurotoxic. Okay? So now let's go ahead and look at Spanish sage oil. Okay? So Spanish sage, like, I kind of understand lavender, and I kind of understand spike lavender. They're still in the same family, the lavandula family, right? But the Spanish sage I didn't quite understand until I looked at it. So let's go ahead and bring this one up for you, and you can see it's called lavender sage. So this is Salvia lavendulifolia. Okay, so this is kind of like lavender sage, which is why they're using it. So now you could see here, lavender sage has the 1.8 cinnalol in it, and it also has camphor. Okay, so the same thing. The 1.8 cinnalol is the oxide, which is stimulating, okay? And the camphor is the ketone, which can be neurotoxic. Okay, so as if that weren't enough, here, if for some reason your lavender oil has been adulterated with Spanish sage, you also need to look down here where Robert Tisserand and Rodney Young have labeled this essential oil an abortifacient. Okay, for a lot of us women who are having fertility concerns and fertility issues, that's a big concern for us. And with the amount of lavender that we are using, we want to be cautious, and we want to be assured that we're using products that aren't going to harm our reproductive system, and they're not going to disrupt our fertility. Okay, so that blew me away. And then it's contraindicated, obviously, if you're pregnant and if you're breastfeeding. So this is something that it's really important, again, that you trust the source of your lavender, and you know that it is just Lavandula angustifolia. Because if you're using this product, if you're breathing this product in, and your product is adulterated with the Spanish sage, you could be doing harm to yourself and to a potential child. Okay, there's no other way to say that. And as an aromatherapist, my job, just like a doctor's job, is to do no harm. Okay, so be careful, be cautious, and trust your sources. Okay. The last one on here is saying is white camphor oil fractions, and then hoe oil. So white camphor and hoe oil are fairly similar because they come from the same plant. So white camphor oil is called true camphor, and you can see here it is very, very different than anything else that we've seen. White camphor oil primarily has limonene in it. Okay, and limonene is a monoterpene. Okay, monoterpenes are stimulating and toning. Limonene is one of the components that you see in all of our citrus essential oils, so it really stimulates circulation of blood, it stimulates circulation of fluids within the body, and it tonifies things. So this is a very, very different type of an oil, and obviously it's not going to have the same effects as an ester alcohol combination of the true Lavandula angustifolia. Okay, this also has a safety hazard with skin sensitization if it's oxidized, okay, because monoterpenes, if they are exposed to air, oxidize, and then that oxidization causes a chemical reaction within the chemical components of the essential oil that can cause skin sensitivity when used. So that means that if you are not capping your bottles, if you're leaving the caps off, or if you are constantly opening and closing your source bottle rather than putting the oil in a smaller bottle to source from, right? You could have oxidization, sensitization within the product. And so that's one thing also to look at if you are using your essential oil, like if you're using one of these big bottles here, and you've used it and now it's down to here, and then all of a sudden you're starting to have skin reactions, it might be because you have an adulterated product with this white camphor, and it's an oxidization problem, and it's not necessarily a lavender problem. It's because your lavender's been adulterated with white camphor that's oxidized, and now you're having skin sensitivity. So these are all possible things. I'm hoping you've not experienced any of them, okay? And so real fast, I'm going to go back over the last component on here, which is adulteration with synthetic compounds. Okay, so the synthetic compounds that we want to be careful with, hold on, I gotta find it again. I took all my book notes out. Okay, so the synthetic compounds that they talked about is the synthetic linalool and the linalool acetate. So these are chemical components that can be easily synthesized within a lab, but within the sensitization process, you're going to have different enantiomers, okay? So it's kind of like naturally occurring linalool, like it's saying, is going to have 85% of the R negative enantiomer in it, which is kind of like having 85 left hands and only 15 right hands, okay, within the product. With an essential oil component, a chemical constituent that is synthesized, you're not going to have that. You're going to have either 100% of one because that's what they made, or you're going to have a 50-50 component of both. So this is stating that one way a manufacturer can ensure that the essential oil they are giving to their customer is lavender is to make sure that they have 85% of the linalool content having the R negative enantiomer in it, and then 98% of linalool acetate with the R negative enantiomer in it. So it is again, cheaper for a manufacturer and or for a broker to add extra linalool or extra linalool acetate to these cheaper essential oils. So they could take the white camphor, which has no linalool or linalool acetate, add this synthesized components into it, and make it look like it has the proper amounts that lavender should have. Okay, and that unfortunately is one of the ways that unethical, immoral brokers and unethical, immoral manufacturers will produce a lavender product. So it's all natural. It can be natural because linalool is a natural substance. Linalool acetate is a natural substance. White camphor is a natural substance. It's just not really lavender, if that makes sense. So this is why I very quickly used primarily doTERRA essential oils. I had initially received an essential oil from doTERRA from a friend of mine, and then I went out and I purchased some from Sprouts, and she talked to me about the purity of the oils, and I stopped using the ones from Sprouts for anything besides deterring flies around my house, and it wasn't even very good at that. So I hope that this video has shed some light over why purity is so important, and over why there's also a very big divergence and possibly more and more essential oil adverse reactions regarding lavender, because while lavender is becoming more and more popular, unscrupulous brokers and manufacturers are not selling true Lavandula augustifolia to all of their customers. There is adulteration. This is a book that was put out in 2014, so this is many, many years before essential oils were mainstream, so to speak. And if there was adulteration at that time, I can only assume that there's even more now. So use your common sense. Be safe. Have a blessed day, and oil away.